of the UK for a statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, at the outset, I would like to thank the speakers, Ms. Karen Landgren and Mr. James Cockayne, for their comprehensive briefings. We thank the delegation of Kuwait for organising today's meeting. For a number of years already, the Security Council has been discussing its working methods in an open format with the participation of a broad range of UN member states. We think this is a useful practice because a periodic review of the existing arsenal that we have allows us to think about how to further improve it. Something else that's important is that today's meeting is taking place under the presidency of a delegation that heads the Security Council Working Group on Documentation and Procedural Questions. We're confident that this discussion, like the outside view of the state of affairs itself, will make a particular contribution to the work of this group and will also help it to enrich it with new ideas. Of course, this is on the understanding that the working methods themselves and any steps to modify them are the property only of the members of the Council itself. The issue of the working methods of the Security Council is very sensitive. We are convinced that any change here should be oriented at increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of the Council in fulfilling its primary objectives to maintain international peace and security. The use here of any populist rhetoric, including in the context of this endless increase of the level of transparency in the work of the Council, not only doesn't help us to achieve results, but it actually often makes that more difficult. We welcome the efforts of the Kuwaiti delegation to improve the working methods of the Security Council. We've taken note of its intention to make changes to the note by the President 507, which is important as a compendium of the Security Council's working practices and is actively used by the non-permanent members as an important primary source. For our part, we're ready to provide all kinds of assistance to the Kuwaiti delegation in this painstaking work, which needs to be carried out painstakingly and without any artificial hurry. It's important to guarantee unity of the Council on a broadest possible range of issues. We note the active interest in procedural aspects of the Security Council coming from the non-permanent members. This certainly helps to develop collective solutions in the Council's practices. President, we once again draw your attention to the burden of documentation from the Council. Every year it produces several hundred documents, and some of them, we have to confess, don't really add much value. Something else that also doesn't help is the artificial micromanagement in some resolutions. We're convinced that the outcome from the Security Council, its products, should be short, clear, easy to understand, and the main thing, they should be action-oriented. And here I would echo our British colleague. We're also somewhat lukewarm about the Council discussing thematic subjects, in particular those which under the UN Charter fall within the purview of the General Assembly, ECOSOC and other organs of the organisation. This would destroy or impede the existing division of labour and would draw the Council away from its primary objectives, on which it can and must take decisions, specific decisions. We support the thesis that it is important to increase the Security Council's coordination with the broadest possible range of member states and with those who can provide the Council with important information for its decision-making. For this, within the Security Council, it has corresponding mechanisms. These include interactive dialogues and unofficial meetings in the ARIA formula. That said, these measures are not official meetings of the Council. We're convinced that these formats should be utilised only to increase the awareness of the Security Council members on issues on the Council's own agenda. We cannot allow these fora to be used for propaganda or to promote controversial unilateral approaches by specific delegations. I note that the cost of the use of headquarters premises, conference services, and in some cases interpreters for such meetings is covered from the UN's regular budget. we should pay particular attention to the proposal by the Kuwaiti presidency for the further modernization and democratization of the Security Council's work in the context of equal distribution of responsibilities for the informal management of different dossiers, penholdership in other words. Different members of the Security Council shouldn't see one or other country or even region as their own fiefdoms or act as mentors on certain issues. We need to broaden the number of penholders, in particular from the non-permanent members. I'd also like to decisively speak against the working practice of working under an artificial deadline. It's no secret to anyone that the dates for the adoption of resolutions for the Security Council often become known as early as when the working programme is outlined for the month. Nonetheless, many draft resolutions we receive unjustifiably late, which doesn't allow us to gather expert views on them, not to mention a fully fledged consultation. Sometimes the view arises that this is done by the penholders deliberately, with the thinking that if colleagues are in a hurry, they won't notice certain problematic aspects of the text. The wording of Security Council resolutions sometimes changes just minutes before the vote, and ultimately what we have are unfinished documents which don't take into account Security Council members' concerns. We think that all of this is unacceptable and we'll fight these kinds of tactical tricks. We cannot rule out that ultimately we will be compelled, within specified criteria, to also take a view on the effectiveness of the work of penholders themselves. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation.